live in the Union Hills neighborhood. Near the proposed site of the proposed compressor station. My concerns and my opinion are still the same. The proposed gas-fired compressor station is of no value to me or anyone in the Union Hill and Union Grove neighborhood. If built, this compressor station would be pumping 24/7, disturbing our sleep at night with its unscheduled blowdown while feeding on its own unrefined natural gas, emitting its toxic into the very air we breathe. Its own acoustic sound can set off vibration, shaking the earth around it and churning up the water table, and the humming of the turbines running day and night in our ear could drive a poor soul out of his mind. Who in his right mind would want this in this neighborhood? Using the words of the late Nancy Reagan to just say no, I say no to the compressor station, and I pray that you do the same.
Washington, and I live on Shelton Store Road, about half of a mile from 256. After graduating from grade school, I moved to Washington, D.C. to get a better job. And I retired after 20-some years and moved back home. I returned to Buckingham for peace and quietness and live a peaceful life. I have family members who's dealing with serious health problems. And I ask you to consider denying the compressor station. When I read my Bible, it tells me that I can praise God whatever I please. And I hope you all have a good night. Thank you.
It would have been touted as a selling point for the booming economy that was to result. Instead, the information was withheld, presumably out of fear that we would back out of the deal or offer a lower price. Who would knowingly, eagerly purchase a home anywhere near such an installation? Had we known this was in the works, we would have completely bypassed even looking at homes here. We are not alone in feeling this way. Gen Xers and millennials are the emerging home buyers. We're also leading the charge in the green energy movement, demanding cleaner alternatives and putting our wallets where our mouths and our hearts are. We are empowered and emboldened by the technological advances in solar and wind power, and we will move to areas that support these developments and stand up to the fossil fuel industry. Among Gen Xers and millennials, there is a rise in the back-to-land living and homesteading. Those of us drawn to these movements are trying to escape pollution and break our dependence on big business. Allowing the ACP compressor station to be built all but guarantees that these potential newcomers will avoid Buckingham and look elsewhere, depriving our local economy of the new business and jobs. It is economically short-sighted to sacrifice the potential of our area in exchange for building an unneeded, antiquated, and soon-to-be obsolete form of dirty energy. There are other options. This is your chance to put Buckingham County on the map as a green energy partner, as a friend to the environment, and as a bastion for citizens' rights. Companies and individuals who are interested in these values are the companies and the people we should be seeking to attract, not the big businesses who wish to exploit us and gamble with our health and with our safety. If you vote to allow this compressor station, you vote against our quality of life. If you vote to allow this compressor station, you vote against the wishes of all of these people, of your constituents. If you vote to allow this compressor station, you vote against the desired rural environment. If you vote to allow this compressor station, you vote against our local long-term economic prosperity. And if you vote to allow this compressor station, you vote against the core values of Buckingham County. Thank you.
I can't speak for the health issues, I'm not a health professional, know anything about it, but I believe the studies that have been done prior to this point on this plan have handled that. What I can talk about is the fact that I've heard a lot about engineers, there's been vibrations in the ground, the water table, the dust, sounds and all that. You know, we've had inconveniences with everything we've added to this county, whether it be Bear Garden, the pipeline to Bear Garden, the power line, the chip plant, the continued operation in mind. But every one of these businesses is key to the health financially of this county's survival. Of keeping tax rates where people can still afford to farm and still afford their own houses. And I really believe that this compressor station will do the same thing. It's not the savior of the county, but it's a piece in the puzzle that allows us to expand and keep the economy vibrant where the rest of us can afford to live and people can afford to continue to farm. That's what keeps it rural. Those inconveniences from any of them are usually very passive. It's during the construction stage and then they're gone. I think the other thing that we need to look at is not going to generate a lot of jobs, but it's going to generate some, which is more than what we have. And it seems like we've gotten to a point in Buckingham that all that's left we can teach kids is read and write in the road to Richmond because there's no jobs here. And it's nice to think they'll just come along, but they can't in the environment we've got right now. So based on this, the opportunity to deal with Dominion Power over the years, I found them to be a very good corporate neighbor and stand behind what they've said and always seen them pull their weight in every local jurisdiction that they operate. I urge you to vote for this for the citizens of Buckingham County. Thank you for your time.
Marie Flowers next to speak. Flowers, 3rd District. And you all know that I've been coming here quite often, and I try to put myself in your place and how I would think of voting for this. First of all, I would think of the benefits to the county, and the only benefit is the huge tax that you would get, and then maybe 8 or 10 jobs. But I thought of a lot more detriments. Property values near the pipeline and compressor would go down. Will any of these jobs go to Buckingham people? The proposed for kyanite, is the county going to subsidize that? The Dixons are millionaires. Kyanite would actually make more money, in my opinion, if they limit it and not expand it, because I think kyanite is not a very easily obtainable mineral. There are air pollution, health effects, land destruction, possible water pollution, and we don't have enough of the kinds of businesses that will see a big increase in profit during construction. I think Charlottesville, Farmville, and Richmond will profit far more from the workmen than, I don't think we have enough of the kinds of businesses that will benefit. There are 4 pipelines proposed to go through Virginia. And the biggie is global warming. None of you believe in global warming, I guess. I think the zoning of the compressor station should be denied. There are people that would be harmed. I think you all should care about your people. Remember Flint, Michigan? They tried to balance the budget on those throwaway people in Flint, Michigan. And when I come here, I feel like an enemy. I know you're all nice guys, but I feel like an enemy coming here, talking to you. And my request is, don't you pull the trigger. Let FERC pull the trigger on the county. Don't you do it. You care for your people. These are your people. Thank you.
My name is Ella Rose, and I live in the Slate River District. I have lived here in Buckingham County for about 5 years this past December. I came from neighboring Nelson County, where I still have family. Their lives are also being plagued by the large pipeline that will be running through their property. So, our family is being affected on both sides of the river. I own my own home here. I live a peaceful life, and that is the way I like it. 2 years ago, I learned about the compressor station that Dominion wants to locate here in the county. Initially, I did not think too much about it, but as time went on, and I learned more about what people who live near compressor stations are forced to live with, I did begin to worry some. I decided not to let it take over my life because I value my peace. I have since learned that my home is the closest home to the land that Dominion has purchased to build a compressor station on. Anything that is talked about here tonight will most directly affect me and my way of life. I value the quiet that I presently experience when my windows are open or while sitting outdoors. I wonder what effect this constant noise will have on me. There will be lots of construction noise also, and heavy traffic. I am used to the quiet here, so I no longer have that. I am in fairly good health, but I know that as I get older, I will have to be more cautious about my health, as older people are more vulnerable. Air pollution aggravates the health of people who live near compressor stations. You have already heard a lot about that. I will be forced to live with this, and there's nothing that I can do to prevent my health from deteriorating. This is not the plan I had for my retirement, but it seems as though your decision to allow this change in zoning, which will also affect my future, for good or bad. It is disheartening to know that everything that I've worked for all my life, which was to own my own home and live in peace the rest of my life, will be taken away from me if I am forced to live with a large, noisy, polluting compressor station nearby. I hope you will make a decision to favor and value the life of residents who live nearby. Our lives should not be sacrificed. Our lives count and are dependent on you to make a decision that favors life and not financial interests, most especially Dominion financial interests. Thank you.
5. I present the first part of a video testimony by Camilla Malik. She created at the request of Watchmen to present to the board about living near a compressor station 1/4 the size of the one that Dominion proposes for Dominion Hill in this corner. After you watch this video, you will know why we all came together here to press you to deny this special use permit and reject Dominion's claims that this huge compressor station will be safe and healthy to residents.
Camilla Malik, I am the chair of Protect Orange County and a resident of Winnicott, New York, a once pristine rural residential community in upstate New York. And it's also home to many 9/11 first responders who moved here for clean air. In 2012, FERC approved a 12,260 horsepower gas compressor station to be built just a few hundred feet from many, many homes, dozens of homes. FERC never rejects a project, so it was approved despite evidence of imminent human and environmental harm. Since it's become operational, we've had frequent odor events, after which children in our community experience nosebleeds, breathing problems, headaches, abdominal cramps, and rashes. Adults report breathing problems. I get breathing problems, and I have no history of respiratory illness before this was built. People also report difficulty concentrating and losing balance. Many families have left. One walked away from their home entirely and left the state. We experienced blowdown events where large amounts of gas are released into the atmosphere, and noise sounds like a jet engine. And following that, we usually see symptoms I mentioned earlier. Blowdown events are often unplanned and can happen whenever there is too much pressure in the pipeline. In 2014, a team of scientists did air testing with little devices that measure particulate matter, PM2.5, and we discovered that there were extremely high spikes of emissions in the middle of the night, which explained why I often woke up in the middle of the night unable to breathe. This indicated to us the company was venting toxic gases in the middle of the night. My neighbor whose property abuts the station has lost 4 large animals within 2 years. There is almost no oversight and regulation of these facilities. They are industrial, toxic, and volatile, and don't belong near people or pets. I'm going to very quickly show you some slides. Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. District 5.
Go. Slides. Here we go. This is a child after a venting event. 50 miles up the pipeline, that child had a rash 2 days later. My daughter had a nosebleed. This is what the emissions look like with an infrared camera. And as you can see, the problem with air pollution is that you can't see it, but with an infrared camera you can. And this is what's coming out of our station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's on very minimal capacity right now. This is a symptom my daughter had after a recent blowdown event. Well, it was spring of this past year, and she had a massive gushing nosebleed. As I said, there's often emergency blowdown events as well, which are unplanned. And this is after one such event, and because of this, this family moved away. And the other thing I want to quickly show you is these particulate matter meters that I mentioned earlier. And these red spikes are spikes in emissions. The green is safe for human health. But this is what was happening in the middle of the night in our community. And it's one of the reasons why this family left. So they don't belong in near people or pets in residential communities. So I wish you guys a lot of luck. Thank you.
Is there a Susan Legal here? She got skipped over?
I live in District 5. It is a deep honor to appear before each of you. Thank you for staying awake for all these hours. I'm sitting there and watching Dominion present, and they're really pretty slides, except you realize, they admitted to you tonight, they're going to poison our air, poison our water, and poison our land, but just a little bit. When they use the word reduce, they're not reducing existing pollutants, they're reducing the amount that they would otherwise have dumped into our air, land, and water. Please understand that's what they said tonight. They admitted that's what they're going to do. I humbly ask the Board of Supervisors to reject the exemption request to allow the ACP partners to build a massive compressor station in an agricultural district. We're so close to this site that the known harmful impacts on our property values, our farming operations, raising cattle, our orchards, and our health deeply, deeply, deeply concern us, and it should you and your kids and your grandkids. I want to single out the public relations strategy used by Dominion Resources to promise our largely low-income county $1.3 million in more corporate tax revenues. The SUP assigns $500,000 of these tax revenues to the compressor station, yet in its safety section, ACP admits by telling Buckingham, all volunteer fire department and paid EMTs, that this is money to pay for extra equipment needed for fires and explosions and loss of life services, should they occur. Needed only because of the location of the compressor station in our midst. We really need to try to take this in. You guys get so much dumped on you in these hearings, so much information, so much emotion. I apologize for that. But we are really talking about potential loss of your life, my life, our kids' lives, in my case, grandkids' lives. I think you understand that. Or maybe you're really hoping against hope that Dominion really is going to become Santa Claus for the county with no real risk to each of you, to each of your families, and the other people you care about in this county. Please understand that's not the case. They're not Santa. We are flyover for them, whatever they told you tonight. We are flyover for them. This whole thing for me begs the question about what is the value of a single life? Even your auto insurance policies cover $300 to $500, right? Per condition. You have an accident, you kill somebody by accident. Don't worry, your insurance covers $300,000 to $500,000 per person per event. Yet the ACP LLC shields itself entirely in the event of loss of life here. You're getting spun, as we also say in the old news business. You're getting spun round and round, and you're getting beautiful, beautiful paint put on a pig. It's still a pig. Please don't vote for it. Please, I beg you, and I thank you.
Turner, I live in New Canton. I make my living building and maintaining power stations that provide us energy. every person here, when they go home tonight, wants to have heat in their house and cold food in the refrigerator. That would not be possible without energy. Personally, over the years, I have seen the federal government regulate the coal industry down so hard that the response from Dominion and other energy groups has been to turn to the cleaner energy of natural gas. There are multiple natural gas power stations being built right now in Virginia. There are also coal-fired power stations that are being converted to natural gas. Anybody that heard of Dan River just across the border in North Carolina had an enormous environmental crisis with coal burning power plant that polluted the Dan River, killed lots of stuff, shut down the power plant because of the coal energy. The answer is natural gas energy. Any person that is in this room tonight, anybody walk here? Did anybody walk to this meeting? One guy. Everybody else polluted on the way here. You also made a bunch of noise with your car. Nobody up here walked, I don't think. So, personally for me, I have to drive an hour and a half to be able to do my job. I am available for work in my own county. I am highly skilled, trained. The environmental footprint that will be in Buckingham County is minuscule compared to the overall benefit of our nation. I hear people talking about solar panels. Think about the thousands of acres of trees that would have to be plowed down in order to make a solar panel farm. What do the environmentalists have to say about that?
Not true.
Let's give this man the same respect that he.
Anyway.
Hold on, sir. Stop the clock. Let's give this man the proper respect that he's speaking. We shouldn't be rude to him like that. Start the clock back at 15 seconds. Sorry, sir.
Furthermore, when a corporate giant like Dominion or any other corporate giant sets out to do something, they're going to make it happen one way or the other. Why not let Buckingham reap the financial benefits instead of passing it on to another county? Not only that, but every other surrounding county will benefit from their tax dollars.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak about safety, because that's the thing that is of greatest concern to me. You've been told tonight that this is a highly regulated industry and that there are all kinds of requirements. Well, from what I've learned since this process started, the main entity that is responsible for safety, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, which began in 1970, has been chronically underfunded and understaffed for the entire portion of its existence. In the summer of 2015, I realized that there was going to be a hearing, and there's one of the things that I passed you all is a copy of the letter from the committee in the House of Representatives that had that meeting. And it points in the letter, and I highlighted it in the copies that I gave you, that 42 of the congressional mandates, 17 were incomplete 4 years later. They were trying to reauthorize the agency. They ultimately did that, but year after year, when they look at them, they haven't done things. And they also don't have the data that they can use to make the right decisions, very often because rules have been set up so that they cannot get it. Everything is risk-based today, and you already heard how Buckingham is supposedly one that has the least risk. That means the least oversight. That means the least opportunities to look at things. We will be at risk. A proposal was released in this past summer to improve things. Immediately, it was under attack because it would take resources from the urban areas where there's more risk and more to be lost. We've already heard from our president's proposed new leader of this group that she wants to have reduced regulations to make it easier on the energy industry. I am frightened. I am honestly frightened about what is going to happen. With the distance monitoring, originally they told us that we would have fiber. Now we're using undependable cellular technology. It's not state-of-the-art technology. They keep saying we're state-of-the-art, but that's not state-of-the-art. I'm very concerned about the conditions. Much of what I passed you is related to conditions. I didn't have the exact ones you're considering, but have a lot of concerns there.
Georgie and 8 generations of my family have called Buckingham home. I own a home and land that I inherited through this legacy. Dominion is notorious for bending the rules, breaking the rules, or when neither of those is sufficient to support their agenda of greed, paying the right people to have the rules changed altogether. Past behavior foretells future actions, and Dominion has given us no reason to believe any of their promises. Last September, Dominion vented their compressor station in Loudoun County without adequate warning to local officials. While the resulting gaseous plume stretched to a radius of 10 miles, emergency responders received over 100 calls from terrified citizens. This is the same compressor that Dominion had assured the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors that they would not expand. If anything, they said they would reduce capacity. Yet in October, they announced the addition of 7,000 horsepower of compression. In response to protests from the Board of Supervisors, they apologized for their lie and then just said they were going to proceed despite the Board's objections. This is the behavior you can look forward to if you grant this SUP. Dominion has already mocked the rules they agreed to follow for the surveying of potential routes. Yet by law, they can survey land without the owner's consent. However, in a recent court challenge to this law, Dominion agreed to the stipulation that they must and will notify the landowners and wear visible identification. Yet there's a video online of surveyors invading the land of a Buckingham citizen with no identification and total disregard for his pleas for them to identify themselves. Showing ID would have cost Dominion nothing and would have showed that they honored what they've agreed to do. How will they behave when complying with the rules costs money? How will they behave? Also, they make grand claims that the ACP will bring jobs to our community. In this example, they could have employed local surveyors, yet none of them are local, not a single one. The compressor station will have gas lines for Transco. In 2008, one of their natural gas lines exploded, obliterating 2 homes in our neighboring Appomattox County and injuring 5. This was caused by negligence, breaking safety guidelines concerning maintenance. How could they claim that safety is paramount when they're working with a company that the U.S. Department of Transportation's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration has identified as having a history of neglecting cathodic protection guidelines? Dominion has promised the taxes generated by the compressor station will exceed $8 million over 8 years. That is only $69 per county resident per year. And at the end of those 8 years, the $69 will have run out and we will be left with a shattered tax base. That is if they even pay the $69. In 2015, Dominion was found in audit to owe the city of Richmond $1.75 million in taxes. Not only did they not pay, as the largest contributor to the state legislators, they had the General Assembly vote to exempt them from this tax in the future. They simply had a rule that they did not like changed for the sake of their profits. There is nothing to stop them from reneging on the revenue they have promised. Past behavior foretells future actions, and Dominion has given us no reason to believe any of their promises. You have the responsibility to resist the lure of their hollow claims of economic benefit and protect Buckingham from this Trojan horse. It is your job to ensure that citizens' concerns outweigh corporate arrogance. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors, fellow Buckingham residents, Dominion representatives, and others. I'm Erin Burnett, and a property owner in the 5th District. As a hospice chaplain and social worker, many of my conversations have focused on someone's legacy. Most of us will not have our names on buildings, or have a street carry our name, nor a statue in a market square. Yet all of us will have a legacy. This is what we are known for, and how we will be remembered. As an elected body, the Buckingham County Board of Supervisors voted to protect and voted to protect the interest of our community residents and the environment. You did this when you said no to the high voltage power lines. In Buckingham, we are known for our love of hunting, fishing, and farming. We are known for our lush terrain, waters, and rolling hills. Our handmade goods, vegetation, and farmlands are what make families live here for generations, or folks relocate to acquire a simpler life here in Buckingham. Think about this. Buckingham County and Dominion could be leaders, not only through the Commonwealth, but for our country and the planet, by promoting clean, renewable energy options. But no, as a company, Dominion exploits and pollutes our natural resources. The idea of having a compressor station exemplifies this lack of creativity, innovation, and preservation. Instead of developing energy sources for the future, Dominion insists on shackling us to fossil fuels. Buckingham residents and the Board of Supervisors, Dominion does not share our values. Should this compressor station be approved, the risks far outweigh the benefits that Dominion has suggested. Leaks and explosions would taint our water supply, tarnish our air quality, and cause our property values to plummet, as well as ruin the aesthetic beauty of our county. Dominion is known for making quick bucks around the table with shaky deals and pollution, all at the expense of the consumer, us. Dominion, this is your legacy. This is what you will be known and remembered for until you take a different approach that is in harmony with the values and the integrity of the communities in which you work in. Let us defend our legacy by doing what the greatest generation did, thinking of what the next generation will need in order to succeed. I ask that you vote no for the SUP, stopping this compressor station and any extension to a pipeline. Thank you.
Guru Charananda, and most people know me simply as Mataji. I'm from District and I humbly request that you deny this special use permit entirely. It's your legal right, and it's your duty to protect us. Instead of bowing to outside pressure, please wait. See if FERC issues ACP a certificate when we can receive stronger binding agreements. Here are a few arguments why I would deny this. One of the key elements to prayer and meditation is silence. Yogaville's decision to move our spiritual community to this site was and is the profound, healthy silence. Silence that follows and allows one to reflect, to connect with nature's vibrations and sounds. Many people moved back to Union Hill area from adult lives spent in new, noisy cities because they missed nature's sounds of the birds, the wind through the trees, the streams in motion. Many have invested their livelihoods in that silence, whether Yogaville or many cattle farms that surround this giant compressor station. Now the silence that brought us here is deeply threatened. Our trusted investments already made to live, to grow, and to then share the fruits of that peace and tranquility in our lives are needlessly being threatened. Please, don't allow this to happen. Many people have told you that we will barely notice the sound of the compressor station. Please, don't believe that. I'm speaking here also for the people living close to that proposed 55,000 horsepower compressor. Whether the sound is abated to 55 decibels by making devices, our bodies and minds and spirits experience the full sounds emitted, even if our ears don't register that level. Just a closing remark. Anyone who has ever lived or worked, even briefly, next to a regular construction site knows what a blessed relief it is when the noise stops. Will the compressor ever stop?
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen of the board. My name is Michael Malolo, District 5. I have the humble and satisfaction to represent Yogaville as the land steward, as the landscape manager of over 600 pursuing acres. I will not be doing my duty to that community and not come here before you to tell you to please vote against this proposal. Yogaville is a home of 200 members. It's a spiritual community that sees, in the course of a week, 300 people coming to relieve themselves from the bustle of a fossil fuel-driven world. We've heard the insignificant measures proposed by Dominion of the compressor station and pipeline coming from Buckingham. But I'm going to give you some other facts that stand in light of the measures that they would propose to reduce the risks. And this is according to a website called the Biological Diversity, and it is using U.S. Department of Transportation figures and facts. According to the data, since 1986, there have been nearly 8,000 incidents, nearly 300 per year, resulting in more than 500 deaths, 2,300 injuries, nearly $7 billion in damage. Since 1986, pipeline accidents have spilled an average of 76,000 barrels. This happens. It's more than 3 million gallons a year, 200 barrels a day, all across our country, almost 1 or 2 a month. I also stand before you as a steward of pristine lands, water, and air. Bring to your awareness the coalition of a global community. Here in this courtroom, we have a global coalition of citizens from Richmond and as far as Charlottesville. We are looking for alternatives. We are looking for leadership. You are our first measure of defense. We come to you as citizens, and from here we say no. No means no. Leave the oil in the ground. Let's go for a brighter future, a cleaner future. If we're worried about revenue, we can make revenue with other tax incentives from renewable resources. Let's abandon this old way of using energy and go to a newer way. We need your help. Let's say no at the community level, and let's take it all the way to the top. We have to use our legislation to make change. Thank you.
Hello, I am Fraser Edwards from the 5th District, and I have moved here from Washington State, from Buckingham. And before I was living there, I heard the story of 2 children that were killed in a pipeline explosion, and this brought fear to many people. And do you want people to live in fear when they're playing in the forest, or do you want them to live in peace? Local boards of supervisors have very basic responsibilities to their communities. Protecting the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens is its most important obligation. Sometimes protecting the community means saying no to big business. We believe this is one of those times. Look at this room. The people here are asking you to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the individuals directly affected by the proposed compressor station. Our health and welfare must be your first priority. Our community is not the place for an industrial project of this kind. We ask you to adopt this community veto resolution, to say yes to clean air, to say yes to protecting our health, our safety, and our welfare, to say yes to the citizens you all represent. Thank you.
My name is Annie Farr, and I have lived all my life in the 5th District. have been some people on this board that said that they don't know who to believe. We didn't start this dog fight. We didn't want to have a dog fight. They brought the dog to us. And not only did they bring the dog to us, they want to dictate the rules. They brought the dog to our house. They don't even want to play in the room they're supposed to. They're in an agriculture district and wanting to put an industrial site for private gain. Understand that. They're taking my land and everybody that's concerned. They're taking their land. But they're still going to be paying taxes on it. They're still going to be paying those taxes. And on the thing about you don't know who to believe, let me tell you something. I work for two of the finest people up in this county. And that was a saying where I worked. And we laughed about it, but there was a lot of truth in it. And you know what they said? They said you can go to hell for lying the same as stealing. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not in the habit of lying, and I'm not in the habit of stealing. I hope everybody in this room, everybody, all of you, have the same practice that I do. You don't lie and you don't steal. You don't take people's land and you don't lie about why you're taking it. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. We're up here. I don't want to be doing this. You see this little notepad I've got? It was used to try to find a new horse. Well, now it's used for this meeting. I'd much rather be riding a horse than in this place. This came out last week, I think, within the last week. It's not the permanent for environmental impact study. It is the draft. It's not final. I so hate I have to rush on something like this. Well, have you read it? I just got this in the mail today. Have you read it? Do you know what's in it? The other thing I want to say, if you don't believe us, and you don't know whether to believe Dominion, I'm advising you to spend $50,000 to $75,000 and hire your own private, non-biased person.
I live on farm in Mr. Allen's district. It's never an accident where they choose to place these projects. It's not an accident that it's in a working class African American community. It's not an accident that they pick Buckingham County. They think they come into a low income community like honestly Buckingham County is. They can just wave a little money around and people are going to sit down and take it. And I just think we have a chance here to say that we might not have a lot of money here in Buckingham County, but that does not mean that our futures, that our children's futures, that our grandchildren's futures are for sale. Thank you.
Committee Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Marie Gillespie, I'm in District 5, and I live right on Union Hill Road, across from where the compressor station is planned. I, along with my husband, have been residents, landowners, and homeowners for living here for 20 years in our home that is less than a mile from the compressor station. I've spoken at the Planning Commission and at FERC, and I've shared a lot of the negative effects of the proposed station. Tonight, however, I just want to spend a minute talking about some personal effects of this compressor station. This beautiful, peaceful, tranquil, and friendly place was where we decided to retire after living all our lifetime in the world's greatest metropolis. This decision was made after visiting relatives here over a 20-year period. It was easy to make. We were drawn by the pristine environment, the relaxing atmosphere, the clean air, and the refreshing water, unlike anything we had had in our metropolitan home. 2 years ago, unfortunately, we were notified by Dominion, later corrected to a Lightning Coast pipeline, they were planning to build a pipeline and a compressor station directly in front of our home. How could they, I said. I was aghast at this because I thought this was an agricultural area. They really can't be coming here. So here I am this evening with my husband to request that the Board of Supervisors deny the application for exemption of the property in question from agriculture to industrial. I worked for 30 years inside of an oil refinery and other chemical plants. And we were told there were no dangers, that it was safe. Well, what about the 8 colleagues who have since succumbed to the diseases related to pollution and emission? What happened to the assurances of safety? After 10 or 20 years, do we really know the effects, or do we really think so? Well, what happened in this city could happen here. After some additional research, I also discovered the hazards of the compressor station. I have grandchildren, and one granddaughter in particular spends quite a bit of time here. And she's been enjoying it because it helps her respiratory condition. However, it's ironic that now that she's found a place where she can breathe easily, where her doctor has commended her mom for taking her, that we have to be concerned about the air quality that she will be breathing in the years to come. We must end this exemption for both oil and gas industry in our agricultural rural neighborhood. We must close the loopholes and regulations that make it possible for every industry that promises us another dollar to come and take over this beautiful green section of earth, giving us to be good stewards by God. Thank you for your thorough consideration of this request. And lastly, I too am Buckingham. Paraphrase from Langston Hughes, just because we live in a rural area, we still are Buckingham.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is like a bad movie. We all think we know how it might come out, but we sit through it agonizingly, hoping that maybe it'll be different in the end. First, I want to speak in support of the Planning Commission's efforts in a very difficult issue. Even though most of us don't agree with their recommendation, at least you have the conditions they presented. I haven't seen the proposed changes, but I would recommend that you look at even strengthening those if they're a starting point, particularly in the areas of safety and human health, as you've heard so many people speak to. The ACP has said they'll meet all federal and state regulations. Anyone that thinks that state and federal regulations know the best for each human's health have blinders on. Regulatory limits are often influenced by industry influence. They're subject to economic analysis many times if they're too stringent and affect the economics of industry, they're watered down. Finally, I would like to encourage you to remember the requirements to be sure that those conditions are enforced. Again, the state and federal government don't have the funding or the personnel to oversee such a massive project adequately. And I believe it's going to be incumbent on the county to put the mechanism in place, the funding, the staffing, the expertise to be sure those conditions are met if this does go forward. Thank you for your time.
Talk here tonight about the 55,000 horsepower compressor station. What they haven't mentioned was that over at Bear Garden, we have the same type of propulsion system generating electricity over there. It's more like 500,000 horsepower. It can get up to 600,000 horsepower at full capacity. I live within a mile of that. There's not a whole bunch of sound. It doesn't really bother me. When they first started it up and started testing it, there was a little bit, but now it's nothing. As a matter of fact, the trains that run down the CSX train line down there make more noise. As far as an explosion danger, as the crow flies, I live within about 2 miles of the pipeline tank farm. Don't know what the economic impacts would be if that ever exploded or we had a problem there, but it's not a very pleasant thing to think about. Do I stay up nights thinking about it? No. If we have that problem, I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But those are things that are in the area that seem to be of a lot bigger concern than this compressor. One thing I had found, living in that area, we've had to deal with Tenasca and some with Dominion Power when they built the reservoir back there in Miami. They're very good people to work with. They understand that they're crossing your property, that they're causing inconveniences, that the construction is noisy, which they're saying they're going to keep it down to 60 decibels, which is almost phenomenal because the average human conversation at 3 to 5 feet is only 60 decibels. It's pretty quiet. But as far as working with them, I found them absolutely wonderful to work with. They bend over backwards to help you if you work with them. But I just wanted to put that out there because I wasn't sure that anybody was aware that that was the same type of turbine propulsion system over there that's being used to generate electricity. And it's really not that bad to be around. Thank you.
ACP is planned for 1.6 miles from my home and to cross the creek that borders my land. As you all know, in 2011, there was a 5.8 magnitude earthquake felt from Georgia to Ontario, Canada, by more people than any quake in U.S. history. The Washington Monument and National Cathedral suffered millions in damage. This area of Appalachia has long been recognized as seismically active. The epicenter was Mineral, Virginia, and there were aftershocks in Buckingham for several weeks in 2011. Earthquakes could do serious damage to the pipeline and the compressor. Our area here, low density, is by PHMSA, by the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, classified as Class 1, low density population area. That means lower safety standards. The pipeline wall thickness, 75% less than for a higher population area, and the distance between the shutoff valves, 20 miles. So I called the Natural Gas Association and I said, what about fire? They said, well, you cannot put a fire hose on a gas flame. It has to burn itself out. So 20 miles of gas in a 42-inch pipeline under pressure at 1 billion cubic feet a day is a lot of fuel for a very big fire. And she said the fire hoses from your limited county are going to have to go on homes and on forest that gets ignited by that fire. And if you look on YouTube, look at the explosion from the Appomattox, there's a caption under one of the videos that says, my aunt and uncle's house blew up in this explosion. They heard a sound like a tornado. They got in their car in the nick of time and watched their house blow up in the rear view. And that was an 18-inch pipeline. So we're talking about a 42-inch pipeline under much more pressure. Also, the transmission leakage surveys are only conducted every 15 months. Standards are therefore weaker for Buckingham, making it more dangerous for the residents. And as a member of the ACLU, we also need environmental, social justice for our communities of colors. They should not be in the sacrifice zone of this project. Ella, Pastor Paul, should not be in the sacrifice zone of this project. It is not fair. Please reject this permit and just say no.
Wow, that was a mighty good presentation. It was very appealing. However, I'll agree with them. Natural gas is needed for industry. But there are two other key components for industry: transportation and the skilled workforce. And I question whether we have that here, unfortunately. We do have a home and land that can be impacted by this. I learned that in February when I went to that snowy meeting. 3/4 of a mile was the impact zone at that point, and I think it's been increased since then. However, we've never received any notification from Dominion, despite the ad in the paper and the Farmville Herald they would. We had an Exxon jobbership for 39 years. I'm very comfortable with gasoline, diesel. Natural gas scares me. It's much more volatile and destructive. And hardly any week goes by where you don't hear of pipeline explosion, property damage, etc. The previous speaker touched on what I've been trying to get through to people before on the narrow gauge of the pipeline, the extra pressure, and the potential. I'm not going to say much more on that, but that is my biggest concern, is right there. A more narrow pipe in a pipeline under much more pressure, further apart valves. I've got a son who's in Chesterfield as a professional firefighter, paramedic and all. They just stand, they get the people out of the way and let it burn out. And as she said, what's going to happen with 20 miles of pressure, of fuel under pressure? That's going to be one heck of a fireball and everything else. The lady from Dominion talked about all the regulations they're under. I was on the school board for 8 years. We are very heavily regulated. We got the school system, the school division, where it met all the federal criteria. Less than a third of the other school division in the state did it. We did. However, I guarantee you that there were regulations in force that we weren't meeting. It's okay if you don't meet them, if you don't get caught. No one gets hurt. You all have said that safety is one of your priorities. Please keep that in mind. They talked about Duke Energy. Look at Duke Energy. They've shorted people, one county, two-thirds of their thing. The Supreme Court took action on them. You're in a position now where you're holding a hand of trumps. You deny this application tonight, you're going to be in a much stronger position to deal with this event later if it is approved by FERC. Don't rush into it. Take your time, play your trump card tonight or Monday night, and get the best deal that you can for Buckingham. Thank you a lot.